Hey, welcome to the series of everything you need to know about Python in simplest possible way. In the series of pattern printing, so far we have seen so many patterns. In this video, we will see how we can print this particular pattern. So let us go ahead and see how we can print this particular pattern. So if you carefully observe this pattern, we have 5 rows and on each row we have these numbers starting with 1 going till the value of this, let's say 2, 3, 4, 5. So like that we need to print, and also apart from these numbers pattern we are also having these spaces. So first we need to print these spaces, after we need to print this pattern. So let's go ahead and see how we can print this particular pattern by keeping all these things. So let's say for this reason I am using a variable rows to keep track of these rows and find how many rows we are having. So for that reason, I am using a value 5, because in this pattern we are having 5 rows. So later we will dynamically change this value of rows and get the result as we have expected as like pattern which is similar to this. So for that reason, I can use a input later to get the input. So now what I will be doing is that to keep track of these spaces, I will use a spaces variable. Spaces is equal to, so now we need to initialize a value to this spaces variable. So if you could carefully see in the first row, we need to initialize the spaces based on the first row. So if you could see this first row, we are having a value here. Later we are having spaces are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So out of 10 positions, we are having 9 spaces. Here, we will be having lesser than these spaces, and let's see how many spaces we are having. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We are having 7 spaces here. So in this out of 10 positions, we are having 9 spaces. In this out of 10 positions, we are having 7 spaces as the rows got increased. So by observing this pattern, we can conclude something like rows minus 1. So 2 into multiplied by rows minus 1. So that is what we can able to understand from this. So because this 2 is multiplied with rows which is of first row, we are having 2 with rows. How many number of rows we are having is 5. So 5 multiplied by 2 which is of 10. 10 minus 1 which is of 9. So like that we are getting these particular spaces. We can actually mention the spaces with 9 itself by observing this pattern, but if we change the value of rows, that will be affected and we will not get the actual pattern. For that reason, based on this particular uh, identification of these spaces and these positions, we can able to get this particular statement, and based on this statement we can actually get these spaces. So later what I will be doing is that to generate these rows I will use a for loop. So for that I will use a for loop. For I in range, I will generate a range of value starting with 1 going till the value of rows plus 1, because that is what we can expect from here, right? So we need to start with 1 and we will be going till the value of how many number of rows that we are having. For that reason I am mentioning rows plus 1, because it only consider row how many number of values that we are having to the previous value by this range function. So inside of this for loop, what I will be doing is that I will print the value I to get what we have inside of this particular I variable. So if you see here, we are having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is what the range that we have generated through this range function, right? So if we could compare these values with this particular pattern, we can actually get this pattern. So in the first row, in here, we are having 1, and in the I value, we are having 1. So in the second row, we are having 1, 2. In the value of I, we are having 2 here. In the third row, we are having 1, 2, 3. In the third value of I, we are having 3. By this observation, we can say that the values are starting with 1 and going till the value of I here. So in the first row, we are having going to till 1, and in the second row, we are going till 2. In the third row, we are going till 3. Like that, we can actually going till the value of I. So by using this I, we can print this particular values, this particular pattern, right? So And also, if you can carefully see on each row, this pattern is repeating. Like we are starting with 1, we are going till the some value. We are starting with 1 till going some value. So like this, when we have a repeated statement, so what we generally do, we use loops, right? So for that reason, I will use a one more loop inside of this loop. So I will use another for loop for j in range. I will use a range function to generate this range of values. So as we have discussed, we will start with 1, go till the value of I, right? So for that reason, I am using I 1 and I plus 1. By mentioning this, we will go till the value of I, right? So in here, what I will be doing is that instead of printing this value I will print the value j, because that is what we need to print in order to get this particular rows and values, right? So it will, this j value start with 1, go till the value of I on each for loop iteration. So if we could print this particular pattern, we can able to get the values as 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and these are all the values that we have in this particular pattern. So now the only thing we need to do is that we need to arrange these values so that we can able to get this particular pattern. So for that, what I will be doing is that I will use an end parameter and I will use with spaces, because by default this print having this end as new line character, and for that reason we are getting every value in a new line. So by replacing this end with a single space, we can actually get the result as like this in a single line. So this is not also what we wanted. So in order to get some other pattern, we will be using a print statement here. Why we are using a print statement after completion of this inner for loop is that before, after completion of this each inner for loop, we are directly going to the outer for loop and we are not doing anything. So we need to do something to get this pattern, right? So for that reason, I will mention a space, a new line character, so that as and when the inner for loop completes its execution, it will print a new line character and go to the outer for loop. So for that reason, I am mentioning a print here. And if I execute this, I can able to get this particular pattern, but that is not what we wanted, right? We want this kind of a pattern. So for that reason, if you could see here, we are having spaces, and here we don't have spaces before pattern. For that reason only we are getting this particular pattern. So what we need to do is that we need to print spaces before actually printing these particular values, these numbers, right? So for that reason, what I will be doing is that I will print a space as and when I come to this outer for loop, and this space will be multiplied with the spaces variable. So that is what we have defined to keep track of these spaces, right? So for that reason, I will use these spaces and I will mention this end parameter with nothing, because this end parameter by default having a new line character, but that is not what we wanted. So for that reason, I am not doing anything with this spaces after printing spaces. So after once we come and complete this execution of this inner for loop, we need to do something to the spaces. If you carefully see these spaces, the spaces are keep reducing on each iteration. So for that reason, I will use a statement spaces minus equal to 2. So on each iteration, the spaces will be reduced by 2 and we will get this pattern. So now if I execute this, we can able to get this pattern what we have expected previously. So now I hope you can able to understand this logic to get this pattern. If not, I sincerely suggest you to go and watch this video carefully once again so that you will understand this clearly. So now what we will be doing is that we will change this value of rows with 5 with dynamically taking input from the user. So for that reason, I will mention a input to take input from the user. I am asking user to enter rows, and if I execute this, it was asking me to enter rows. If I give the value as 8, I can able to get this result starting with 1 going till the value of 8 here. So like this we can able to get this pattern. So if I give one more number, let's say I am giving 3 here. So still we can able to get this pattern. So by using this logic, as we can give any number, it can give the pattern something like this. So we have achieved that. So if you found this video interesting, if you understand this logic, hit the like button, and in the next video we will see how we can print this particular pattern. So to stay updated, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notifications to all so that whenever I upload any video, you will get the notification. So thank you for watching this video. See you in the next one.